this is Jedis for Jesus coming back at you, and I told you I'm going to talk about a little bit about Black Lives Matter here today. I'm not sort of going to speak about it. I'm just going to go ahead and play this video that you could go ahead and watch, and so with me not saying any more, here's that video.
After the death of George Floyd in the custody of the Minneapolis police, the Black Lives Matter movement and the main organization have exploded into greater national prominence and gained a very wide following.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
The movement consists of many organizations, including the original Black Lives Matter group. On its website, it lists many goals, the majority of which most people would support, like we work vigorously for freedom and justice for Black people, and by extension, all people. But despite such mainstream ideas, leaders of Black Lives Matter come from a far-left point of view.
Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
The group takes positions many Americans would find very controversial, like its view of the traditional family, saying we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages. Positions like those are why many Black Americans, including Christians who support racial justice, oppose the organization's goals. Black Christian pro-life speaker and author Ryan Baumberger has written top 10 reasons I'll never support the Black Lives Matter movement.
They're radically pro-abortion. I mean, this is the movement that announced solidarity with the abortion industry. Back in 2015, there's actually a solidarity statement standing behind the abortion industry, standing with Planned Parenthood. So how can you say the Black Lives Matter on one hand and then partner with the leading killer of Black lives?
Former Republican Congressman Lieutenant Colonel Alan West disagrees with the idea that police are committing mass attacks on Black Americans, and it's a distraction from the issue of Black abortion.
Black Lives Matter in the media wants us to believe it's a genocide out there. The real genocide is the 20 million unborn Black babies have been murdered in the womb since 1973.
In addition to its support for non-traditional families, the group also strongly believes in gay rights, saying, we foster a queer-affirming network.
The Black Lives Matter movement heavily promotes homosexuality and transgenderism. They want to do away with heteronormative thinking. Well, we see what happens when we do away with God's framework of family, of a married mother and a father, and it leaves behind vulnerable communities which suffer so many negative outcomes.
West believes the organization is simply another far-left group, speaking to it directly in a recent video.
Because you don't stand for anything except the same old white progressive socialist ideological agenda that we will have nothing to do with.
And Baumberger points to another key problem from a biblical perspective.
They have no forgiveness, no reconciliation. There's no call for that. So as a Christian, when our salvation is predicated on reconciliation, being reconciled to God, how can we not be reconciled to one another?
With the number of high-profile deaths of Black Americans while dealing with police in recent years, and especially after the killing of George Floyd, it's easy to see why so many Americans are embracing the idea that Black Lives Matter. But if they take a closer look at the positions of the Black Lives Matter organization itself, they might rethink their support for that group. Gary Lane, CBN News.
I have a couple of videos that I'd like to show and share with you. Trump had a rally, and he went ahead and let some of the college students speak about their experience with some of these organizations out there. So here we go.
We're joined today by Reagan Escora, a student at Northwestern State University of Louisiana. Reagan became a target of liberal cancel culture when she dared to stand up for her Christian values instead of bowing to political correctness. Reagan, please come up and say a few words, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for being here today with all of us and for inviting me up here to tell of my experience with cancel culture. My name is Reagan Escada. I graduated from Northwestern State University of Louisiana in 2019, and I started my first job at a small private insurance company in Louisiana. A few weeks ago, amidst all this chaos that we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter movement, I made a video on my Instagram, and I talked about how disappointed I am in the church's reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement. I've seen pastors call for white congregants to kneel and to apologize for the skin that God gave them. And I addressed these evangelical pastors and leaders and reminded them that racism is a problem in the heart. It is a sin problem that cannot be resolved by any law, protest, or march. And so, of course, my leftist followers didn't appreciate this message at all. I had my name blasted all over social media, and people told me, you know, I'm ashamed to have ever called you my friend. I've lost all respect for you. I love y'all. And so, an ex-coworker of mine made a post on Facebook about me, calling me racist and homophobic, and she listed my place of employment and called for people to call my employer and have me fired. There were death threats made to the owners. There were threats to knock down the building. Law enforcement had to get involved. And due to the crazy reaction from the leftist mob, my employer told me that they came to the conclusion that they needed to terminate my employment. But here's the thing. Losing my job is a small price to pay when God's name is being glorified. And He will always make His name known. But I share this story with you. I share this story with you because what happened to me is just a small example of something that's happening on a much larger scale in our nation. Aunt Jemima was canceled. And if you didn't know, Nancy Green, the original first Aunt Jemima, she was a picture of the American dream. She was a freed slave who went on to be the face of the pancake syrup that we love and have in our pantries today. She fought for equality, and now the leftist mob is trying to erase her legacy. And might I mention how privileged we are as a nation if our biggest concern is a bottle of pancake syrup? And more recently, we're seeing a call for statues of Jesus Christ to be torn down. Now, I'm a little confused here because last week Jesus was a social justice warrior, and this week he's the face of white supremacy. And Jimmy Kimmel has been calling our president racist for years, and it turns out he's the racist. There's governors that are getting away with wearing blackface. That's just sliding under the radar. So I want to encourage you all to stand firm in your beliefs. We need truth. We need hard, cold facts and truth now more than we ever have before. And we are so blessed to have a president who stands on the front lines, walks through the fire every day to fight for our God-given American freedoms. Do not apologize to the mob. And thank you, President Trump, for never apologizing to the mob, for always standing firm, for being here for the American people, and for fighting for our best interests, because you are the change that we need to see in America. Thank you.
Well, that was a great story that she was telling, that here it is, she's telling the truth, and she's standing by what she believes in, and all these circumstances happen to her and loses her job just because you're telling the truth. The next lady that's about to speak, she is, it's also a really good story. and what she had to go through.
The radical left is also working to eliminate free speech on our college campuses. With us today is Nia Moore, a student at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, who has experienced this persecution firsthand. Nia, please come up.
First, I just want to say thank you to Mr. President for having me on stage today. So, if you didn't know much about Minnesota about a month ago, I'm sure you've seen us in the headlines over the past few weeks. The DFL is successfully moving our state farther to the left more and more each day. Now, that isn't because people aren't conservative in Minnesota. It's because they're hell-bent on demonizing us at every turn. I began my career working in politics with Turning Point USA. Unfortunately, due to the leftist culture of my campus at North Hennepin, we were shut down almost immediately and were refused official recognition. I was told by the faculty that political groups were not welcome on campus. However, they had multiple leftist groups that supported the Black Lives Matter movement, they were pro-abortion, and they advocated for Bernie Sanders. I know. Our governor, the mayor of Minneapolis, and the representative of the 5th Congressional District in Minnesota are all Democrats. But for whatever reason, the Republicans and the president take the blame for what has taken place. Unfortunately, the murder of George Floyd has created absolute chaos in my state of Minnesota. Ever since the murder of George Floyd, I have not seen as much division, deceit, and destruction in my life. Black Lives Matter only makes a scene during election years. How convenient that they made the biggest scene of all during the year of the most important election of our time. Black Lives Matter is only about police brutality once every 4 years. In between, they're heavily funding a push for leftist and LGBTQ+ agendas. The Black community's culture is naturally very conservative, so they mask their hidden agendas and play on the community's biggest fear. If Black Lives Matter truly cared about Black lives, they would not have allowed the riots to destroy Black businesses and Black communities. If they cared about Black lives, they would defund Planned Parenthood. If Black Lives Matter cared about Black lives, they would address the astronomically high numbers of Black-on-Black crime in inner cities. They try to paint us as the bad guys for not supporting the organization, but it's not the saying, Black Lives Matter. I think there's very few conservatives that believe Black lives don't matter. We do believe Black Lives Matter. We just believe they all matter, not just the lives the left chooses to exploit. I am the field director for Ilhan Omar's challenger, Lacey Johnson. He is the first Republican in Minnesota to have Black Lives Matter activists and lifelong Democrats want to hear what he has to say. Because of that, they've tried to silence us at every turn. People are fed up and they're getting nervous. They will stop at nothing to keep their hold on us, even if that means lying to the very people they're supposed to represent. Mr. President, I just want to say thank you for being a great example of a big tent Republican. The president has never needed the Black vote to win, but he has still done incredible work with prison reform, lowering Black unemployment, funding HBCUs, and stimulating the Black community with opportunity zones. All without pandering. Once upon a time, the president asked the Black community what we had to lose. We didn't have anything, but now we do. Thank you, Mr. President.
I hope that explains a little bit more about Black Lives Matters and what they're all about. And if today you feel like giving your life to Jesus, because with everything's going on and you want to change your life, down below here we have a link to another video where we'll lead you through the prayer on giving your life to Jesus. Go ahead and subscribe, give a thumbs up, and to be notified, go ahead and click on the bell. And also on the bottom, make any comments, any suggestions. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to Jedis for Jesus.